Hi guys, it's Colette, and today we'll be working on this holographic clover water marble accent. I'm really sorry I didn't get a St. Patrick's Day design up a little earlier this year, but hopefully if you were looking for a design to do on your nails, you found my St. Patrick's Day playlist, which includes several clover water marbles that are more successful than this one. This actually wasn't intended to be an accent nail design when I started, and you'll see how this was kind of a fix for disaster as we go through this video. Be sure to subscribe if you're not already and turn on those notifications. And if you'd like to see how I did this, just stay tuned. Before I start my new manicure, of course I have to take off the old one. And this is actually day 6 of this manicure. I didn't plan on wearing it this long, but just had a couple things come up and didn't have time to test or do a new manicure. So overall it's worn pretty well, but you can see that I lost my left middle nail. The other ones are all still intact, and the middle finger actually came off late on the 4th day, like right before I went to bed, and I didn't bother to stick it back on because I meant to do my nails yesterday and then never got around to it and was just sitting around all day yesterday with one naked nail. So I did add another layer of top coat on the 3rd day, and that really seems to help with me when I'm going to wear a manicure longer with the peel-off base coat. So, as I mentioned, I really only had problems with the one nail. Starting off with clean, dry nails, I'm going to apply my base coat. As usual, I'm using Ready for Takeoff, which is a peel-off base, and you can use whichever is your personal favorite. Alright, just gonna briefly go over the colors. The lightest green I'm using is called Mint Julep. This is going to be my base color in addition to being in the marble. Then I'm using Last Harvest, which is a slightly darker green, and Black Gold Texas Tea. These are all three, as you can see, colors by Llarowe, and they all are holographic. So I'm just going to go ahead and apply my base color. Optional, but very much recommended, is some sort of barrier. I'm using Simply Peel, and you can use whichever kind of barrier you prefer. And if you're allergic to latex, don't feel bad about using something else. I mean, tape worked just fine for many, many years. As usual, I'm working in a 5-ounce cup of room temperature filtered water, and I just want to make sure these first couple drops spread out all the way to the edges. I had some problems in my testing with the bullseye staying centered, so I'm hoping if I started out that way that I can keep the rest of the design in the middle of the cup rather than drifting off to one side. And I'm only going to be using 8 drops of polish for this, which is less than I usually use, but for this, if I used more drops, the clover was turning out kind of blurry. I can tell that the center rings didn't spread a ton, so I'm going to try and, as I'm dipping in, be really generous with my dipping to try and get some of that excess polish out. And make sure that the lines I draw go all the way to the center to really emphasize the clover design. And it also helps to redraw just a little bit if you get a little bald patch in the middle to kind of help shrink that up. So that looks pretty good. The very center petals are not quite even, so I'm going to take that into account when I dip my nail. And usually I dip clovers so that they're kind of square on my nail, and I'm gonna try dipping this one so that it's kind of like a diamond, if that makes sense. Well, you can see what direction I'm dipping here. So I'm just going to line up my nail and dip in. Then I'm going to clean off all of the excess polish and kind of cross my fingers here because I did have some kind of mixed results with my testing, and I'm not 100% sure how well this is going to turn out on my nail. As I pull out here, yeah, you can't see a ton of the clover design, but didn't turn out horribly. I'm gonna go ahead and do the rest of my nails actually before I remove my Simply Peel, and then I'll be back. I actually like that placement a little bit better than the placement on the pinky. Slightly more recognizable as a clover, although still not quite fitting on my nail, but I don't think it would fit in the other direction either, and I think this adds a little bit more of an alternative design. They look almost like stylized X's. Alright, going to remove the Simply Peel. This one is almost dry. You can see it gets a little bit messier, which is why I prefer to do it while it's wet. But it works perfectly fine dry also. May have a little tiny bit of extra cleanup. And then you'll see as I move on to progressively wetter nails, how it comes off a little bit easier. It does look kind of cool actually when the polish is drying. It's like it almost breaks up as the latex comes off. But sometimes you can end up with like this around the edges where it's not actually attached to your skin, but it also detached from the latex, versus when you remove it wet and you generally get a very clean peel. So I'm just going to go ahead and clean up this hand and then move on to my other hand. I think just because why not, I'm gonna go ahead and dip my right hand with the clovers on my nails squarely, since I'm not totally happy with how my left hand turned out. So basically the same, except I'm just lining it up at a different angle. Still try to make sure the clover's centered on there, and dip. Oh, that one just came out really bad. Okay guys, so like really not happy with how this turned out. Despite my best attempts, despite quite a bit of testing, I'm just getting too much variation. They're not fitting on my nails properly. My right hand turned out even worse than my left. And I thought, how the hell can I like salvage this into a wearable manicure? And I decided that each hand has a couple nails that don't suck. Both of the ring fingers and both of the thumbs turned out okay. So what I have decided is I'm turning this into an accent manicure. And I'm going to top all the ones other than my ring finger, my thumb, with black gold Texas tea. I have a couple bubbles I should probably press flat first. But yeah, I'm not real happy with this water marble. Finally, I'm gonna top off this disaster, and as usual, I'm using Seche Vite. So here's the finished manicure, and I have really mixed feelings on this. I'm really disappointed in how inconsistent my marbling was. I mean, really to the point where if I'd tried to wear this as a full water marble on all my nails, it was kind of a fail. But I actually like the way the finished manicure turned out, and the couple marbles that I was able to salvage on my ring fingers and on my thumbs, I think turned out pretty well. Definitely would like to hear if you guys prefer these square-shaped clovers, like on my right hand, or the diamond-shaped clovers, like on my left hand. I like them both. I mean, neither one looks super much like a clover. It's more like, do you like the X or do you like the plus? But part of the reason this was really so frustrating for me is that I did do quite a bit of testing. And this is what my successful design turned out to be. And this is what I was attempting to do on my nails. The only thing I did differently, and maybe it played more of a part than I realized, is I did 2 drops of the same color at the outer rings instead of the medium and lighter green, and I did kind of the trace around the edge to get it to spread all the way to keep the design centered. It definitely did work to keep the design centered, but it may have messed a little bit more with the rest of the rings than I realized, or maybe there's another reason things turned out so weird. I actually did quite a few tests, about half a dozen strips, so about a dozen cups altogether. I'll show you a couple of the other ones, and the actual behind the scenes video will also be coming. I don't think it should be quite as long as the first one I did. I'm really glad you guys enjoyed that, because I was editing it. I was like, oh my god, this is too long. But this is the 2 greens that I used, as well as a lighter green and a darker green. And then I also tried with the 2 greens that I used and a gold. And I quite liked how this one turned out also, but the clover turned out even larger than this one, kind of too large to really comfortably fit on my nail, I felt like. This was a better size, except it turned out to kind of not be. So have all the details on those, as well as a few other tests. If you're not subscribed and with notifications turned on, be sure to do that so you'll know when that behind the scenes video is published. I hope you guys enjoyed this one, even with all the struggles. And I definitely am going to try to step it up for the last half of this month and get more videos out than I did the first half of the month, or specifically more tutorials. So stay tuned for that. And as always, thanks for watching.